Here is a presentation about accounting and financial projects. It is created by Amy Law, based on her experience in managing the accounting and financial projects across companies for utilities, energy, telecommunications, and pipelines. We will give an introduction about Amy Law and her experience on accounting and financial projects. First, we will go over her projects in the SAP Finance Program relating to accounting close process, BIBW reports, payroll workflow, invoice tool upgrade, automate financial statements using BPC, and intercompany billing. Then we will go over her commercial approval project to handle centralized purchase order approval. Next, we will go over her custom billing improvement project to address billing issues. Finally, we will go over her IBM Cognos upgrade project to bring the reporting and analytic tool back to a vendor support level. Hey, this is Amy Law, your presenter. I have been working in IT for over 20 years in pipelines, energy regulator, oil and gas, utilities, transportations, and telecommunications. I have managed projects for over 15 years in IT applications and infrastructure, system and data migration, cybersecurity, ECM, SAP, process improvement, and office facilities. In terms of education, I completed bachelor and master in computer science from the University of Calgary. I received my PMP in 2006. I also completed certifications in project management, change management, ISO 27001, Information Security Management System, and ITIL. I have managed several SAP finance projects. The Accounting Close Cycle project is a part of the SAP Finance Program. This project aimed to streamline accounting close cycle. The issues include the lack of visibility on who is doing what and when during the month-end, quarter-end, and annual accounting close. In some cases, the SAP and BIBW report have to be manually manipulated to present the correct finance information. Here is what I did. I engaged several internal teams for requirements gathering and analysis on the current state. I asked the key stakeholders from general accounting, treasury, budgeting, regulatory, payroll, and so forth to describe their activities for the accounting close cycle. And then I document the activities using Microsoft Excel. Iteratively, I repeated the requirements gathering and analysis, ending up with a spreadsheet to clearly articulate all activities, including their sequencing, dependency, necessary resources, date, and time. I then transfer the information to Microsoft Project Plan to build a critical path, load balance the resources, and adjust the sequence so that we can streamline the accounting close cycle. I was able to map all activities, resources, date, and time to each day in a calendar covering from the 10 days before and after the closing. So we know exactly what and who should do on the day 5. So that is D minus 5. On day 4, that is D minus 4. And all the way to the day of close, D minus 0. And then day after close, D plus 1. And all the way to 4 days after close, D plus 4. To align with the streamlined process, I updated the SAP system and BIBW report with the internal SAP team so that the finance reporting data was accurate without manual manipulation. As a result, the managers could use the calendar to track progress and we assign activities and all resources. The biggest benefit realized in this project include the increased visibility, understanding, and communications across multiple teams. This was a great collaboration with everyone involved. The accounting close process started and finished on time, along with JV submissions, allowing users to focus on other important priorities without staying over time. The finance report become more reliable and accurate without manual intervention. The payroll compensation workflow project is another project in the finance program. It aimed to automate payroll compensation with a target to reduce monthly manual intervention and enable email reminders and escalation through SAP. The project aimed to resolve issues, including manual steps were missing from time to time, affecting union employees to receive timely wage increase, the lack of visibility of the workflow status, and the inability to provide email reminder and escalation. Here is what I did. I engaged the HR, payroll, and various managers for requirements gathering. I asked them to describe their activities and challenges in the payroll compensation process. Then I document the steps using Microsoft Visio. Iteratively, I repeated the requirements gathering and validation, ending up with a swim lane diagram to clearly articulate all steps and associated managers, HR, and payroll to streamline the process. I adjust the sequence of steps to enable the automated payroll compensation. To align with the automated process, I updated the SAP system with the internal SAP team so that the automated workflow could reduce the monthly manual intervention to less than 1 hour per month. As a result, the managers could review the payroll compensation for their staff using the automated workflow and email reminder. They could track approval progress. The biggest benefit realized in this project include the increased visibility of the payroll compensation status. This was great for manager and VPs who can make the review and approval on a timely basis and ensure no steps would be missing. The ReadSoft upgrade is another project in the finance program. This project aimed to patch SAP add-on tool, ReadSoft, and implement the ReadSoft latest out-of-the-box features such as the built-in workflow for check request and vendor search. The project was mandatory because the ReadSoft functionalities were no longer working due to the lack of patching. The ReadSoft tool was 7 years behind in the client environment, with production and maintenance issues. For example, the system crashed when we scanned a large invoice. The name of a new supplier was not saved properly. Text and numbers were not picked up correctly, resulting to OCR, optical character recognition issues. It will be an opportunity cost if we do not go forward, as the finance team couldn't use the new features available in the latest version. Here is what I did. I engaged the sponsor and champion to identify and evaluate several options to address the issues. We considered to upgrade an existing SAP add-on tool, ReadSoft, or switch to a new tool, or do nothing. Through a procurement evaluation, we decided to upgrade ReadSoft, which includes a replacement of the legacy hardware, like a refresh to the old server, and upgrade to a more powerful RAM. I coordinate with desktop support team to replace legacy hardware and engaged off-site vendor to upgrade ReadSoft to the latest version. As a result, we were able to fix the issues. We enable OCR to pick up text and numbers, fix the new supplier name issues, and ensure the invoice to pay workflow works correctly, regardless of the invoice size. Working closely with the project champion, we created online materials and conduct in-classroom training. The biggest benefit realized in this project was the ability to enable new features using a tool that the user was familiar with, reducing OCM challenges and leading to a higher customer satisfaction. The Automate Budget and Forecast Financial Statements is another project in the finance program. At that time, the monthly and annual financial statements, such as income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow, were prepared using Excel workbook. This is outside of the systems of record SAP, and so the report were vulnerable to human errors, security concerns, lack of version control, lack of visibility on data source, lack of alignment with SAP, and lack of efficiency. The project objective was to create the financial statements directly from the system of record, SAP. So I engaged an off-site vendor to work with the internal SAP team to create the financial statements using the SAP Business Planning and Consolidation BPC application. The BPC application delivers planning, budgeting, forecasting, and financial consolidation capabilities, so we could easily adjust plans and forecast, speed up budget and closing cycle, and ensure compliancy with financial reporting standard. The result was satisfactory. We successfully replaced the Excel workbook with SAP BPC application. The accounting analysts were able to create the financial statements directly from the system of record, enabling security and version control, visibility on data source, and improved efficiencies. The intercompany billing and reporting is another project in the finance program. This project aimed to change the company code for business development work. This project was mandatory because the business development costs were charged to a wrong company code. If we did not fix the issue, the cost would be charged incorrectly to ratepayers. Or we have to fix the issue manually by charging it back to the correct company code, leading to manual effort, potential human errors, and other calculation issues. Somehow, the manual manipulation aggregate transactions. As such, the detailed line items were lost, affecting report analysis and traceability. So I engaged the accounting analyst to gather the business requirements and manage the internal SAP team to implement the intercompany billing in SAP ECC. As a result, the SAP was able to handle the intercompany billing calculation automatically and generate correct FI reports. The accounting analysts were able to avoid the manual effort and human errors and increase report analysis capabilities. We received a high customer satisfaction from this project because we helped the customers to avoid the high effort, low value work, allowing them to focus on other business priorities. Here is a highlight of the finance program lessons learned. A number of positive findings were identified. They are meant to be repeated in the future projects. We provided business users access to sandbox environment to test before UAT in the test environment. The turnaround time to move SAP system changes to the test environment is much longer due to the IT process validation and approval. The changes can be made to sandbox right away, keeping the user's interest. We engage business subject matter expert SMEs to gather project requirements. For example, business SMEs can easily provide report requirements like user interface elements, including and not limited to drop-down list, checkboxes, and radio buttons that allow users to select values that filter report data. At the same time, business SMEs can easily provide formulas for report output, including data extract, calculation, sorting, and even formatting. We leveraged evaluation matrix to analyze implementation options, leading to a recommendation with the highest score. The evaluation matrix serves as a reference when questions arise about priorities, resourcing, equipment, schedule, and funding. Swim lane diagram provides the visibility of who is doing what and when in a process. It is a type of flow chart. Using the metaphor of lanes in a pool, a swim lane diagram provides clarity and accountability by placing process steps within the horizontal or vertical swim lanes of a particular employee's, department, and even SAP system. Here is a number of negative findings, and so these conditions should be minimized and or avoided in the project in the future. Hard-coded values should be avoided because SAP system functionality could be impacted as a result of the business process change. The easier to change the value, the more adaptive the SAP system is. Therefore, we should use parameter values. Always update SAP system with the latest version for the ease of operation and maintenance. When a system was not patched for 7 years, some of the key functionalities were no longer working. Due to the urgent circumstances, the project schedule had to be condensed, affecting quality and limited options. So we should always keep system patches up to date. Last but not least, make configuration document as a deliverable and condition for payment to vendor. Ideally, we provide a configuration document template to a vendor and have the vendor fill in the blank, including the descriptions, how-to steps, and screenshots. The commercial approval project aims to enhance SAP material management to authorize purchase orders based on a new standard process in the procurement transformation program. It leveraged the automated reminders and escalation using the SAP system to look up the organizational hierarchy and associated contacts. It resolved issues where the organization was lack of a standard process and centralized purchase order approval, affecting the negotiation power of the organization. When individual departments had their own way to select vendors and make purchases, the organization could have duplication of effort to select the best vendors, affecting the bottom line. With the centralized purchase order approval, the organization has more negotiation power, which means lower cost, central point of contacts, and standardized process. This allows for more comprehensive control and optimization of inventory. This also reduces the total number of staff and training necessary, leading to a cost saving. Here is what I did. I managed the internal SAP team to enhance the SAP material management based on the new procurement process to centralize purchase order approval. Since this change affected the entire company, I first coordinated user acceptance testing, UAT, for Calgary Alberta, and China offices. Then I coordinated training for users across the world. And I managed cutover, which was 20 hours of technical deployment and data migration, with validation in Calgary, Alberta, and China. As a result, we successfully implemented SAP material management changes, enabling commercial approvals through reminders and escalation. We help the procurement transformation program to meet the new business requirements, support the new process, maximize efficiency of the transformed organization, and increase the negotiation power of the organization, leading to a cost saving. Here is the commercial approval project lessons learned. A number of positive findings were identified. They are meant to be repeated in the future projects. We had a strong support from senior management. For example, the project sponsor visited the project team during the 20-hour weekend cutover with donuts and coffee. The strong senior management support is very important, especially for any major organizational transformation. We ensure all security profiles were defined with HR and security. We identify who needs roles added, removed, or updated for each incremental rollout. We had a strong OCM plan. We scheduled training with realistic timeline. We visit users and provided on-site training across North America and China. We were grateful that the project budget enabled the hiring of a trainer and covered travel expenses. We provided certification after the training. Only the users who were trained could be granted access to the new tool. We also created an ongoing training plan for future new hire. Here is a number of negative findings, and these situations should be minimized and or avoided in the future projects. We should have engaged business units to be affected early. Since the centralized commercial approval project affected the entire company, not every business unit was able to participate in the process review within a 2-week cycle. A better way to improve the situation is to allow sufficient time on the requirements gathering and process validation through running several requirements workshops across 4-week cycle with different date, time to ensure all business units can participate. We should have document process exceptions and criteria with sponsor sign-off. Some of the process exceptions were not identified, and so they were not programmed into the SAP system. Some of the exceptions were not approved on a timely fashion, and so they didn't make it to the cutoff. Therefore, we had to manually handle some of these exceptions until we were able to update the SAP system for a scheduled patch. A better way to improve the situation is to allow sufficient time to identify all exceptions and allot enough time for sponsor sign-off. We should have identified more real-life test cases for user acceptance testing. We should have worked with users from different areas to broader representation and clearly articulate the purpose of testing and exception. We should have requested testers to build their own test cases based on the real usage and expectation. We should have established negative test cases to break the system so that the application can gracefully handle invalid input and unexpected user behavior. Finally, we should have incorporated the test cases as demo and training materials. One of my accounting projects is related to resolving custom billing issues. My client received an escalation outlining concerns with billing. This include data misalignment, invoice cycle error, and inability to deliver credit. This affected confidence in clients' ability to provide timely and accurate billing. This may lead to a potential loss of their customers and market share. The project was initiated with the objectives to improve billing quality, deliver custom invoices, and investigate issues relating to billing cycle and credit. In terms of delivery, I managed the project using Agile methodology. I engaged the internal business and application teams and user representatives to understand the depth of the billing issues. We iteratively adjust invoice format and calculation to align with the requirements. Each iteration was 2 weeks long. The activities planned were included in a backlog so that we have a clear picture of who is doing what and when. This established expectation and urgency. We had a daily meeting to go over the accomplishment of the day, the planned activities for the next day, and any impediments stopping anyone to move forward. The project successfully enabled an alignment of unit pricing and quantities within each bundle. We ensured consistent invoice format and invoicing content. We also clarified process to address billing issues and deliver credit. We were able to retain the customers and maintain the market share. Here is the custom billing improvement project lessons learned. A number of positive findings were identified. They are meant to be repeated in the future projects. We had a strong support from senior management. For example, the project sponsor provided the operational budget to pay for the project cost to address the billing concerns. The normal project prioritization and funding process would take too long to kickstart the custom billing improvement. The Agile methodology led us to an iterative finding and fixing. So we had a quick turnaround to address billing concerns with the user representatives. The waterfall methodology wouldn't work well in this case because user representatives were not able to articulate the specific scenarios of all billing issues at the beginning of the project. They needed to see the improvement and then fine-tune the changes incrementally to land on a finalized invoice format and calculation. The activities were laid out in the backlog, holding individuals accountable. We had a clear picture of who was doing what and when. This was especially important when the project had a high urgency to meet customer expectation and maintain the market share. Here is a number of negative findings. This situation should be minimized and/or avoided in the future projects. The terminology and process to deliver credit were missing. Customers had their own interpretation. This led to a confusion about how to interpret the invoice. So we had to build a process with definitions to clarify and make an alignment. Unit prices were dynamic as a result of the promotional bundle pricing. This was a real challenge because the promotional bundle pricing led to a perception of data misalignment. So we had to include the specific bundle pricing, unit price, and quantity on the invoice to ensure data alignment. One of my accounting projects is related to financial web-based reporting and analytic tool. At the time, the tool crashed from time to time affecting user productivity. Since the Cognos planning tool was very old, the IBM vendor was no longer supporting it. Limited resources to address the issues within a short period of time was the real challenge. A project was initiated to upgrade the Cognos planning tool to the vendor-supported version and configure the application based on the business requirements. The key deliverable is to ensure the financial reporting and analysis could work under a stable platform. So I engaged and managed the IBM vendor to buy and upgrade the Cognos planning tool at the vendor-supported version and make appropriate configuration to meet the business requirements. There were a few times where we had to bring the IBM consultant on site for system testing, cross-training, and transition to operations. We were able to resolve the financial web-based reporting and analysis issues within 4 months. Here is a highlight of the Cognos upgrade project lessons learned. A number of positive findings were identified. They are meant to be repeated in the future projects. The client had an approved procurement process, allowing the project to engage the vendor very quickly. In this case, the client had a valid MSA, Master Service Agreement, with the IBM vendor. So, we should always keep MSA up to date and renew on a timely fashion. Project management process was in place, allowing the project to use an evaluation matrix to identify options and make recommendation. In this case, hiring IBM vendor was the best option, despite the fact that the project budget was $900,000, covering the licensing, consulting, and travel expenses. Here is a number of negative findings, and so these conditions should be minimized and or avoided in the future projects. Always update system with the latest or vendor-supported version for the ease of maintenance. When some of the key functionalities were no longer working due to the unsupported version, the project schedule had to be condensed with limited options. In this case, we had to bring in the IBM consultant for a quick fix, which led to a high project cost and urgent prioritization to engage internal teams. So, we should always keep system patches up to date. Last but not least, make configuration document as a deliverable and condition for payment to vendor. Ideally, we provide a configuration document template to a vendor and have the vendor fill in the blank, including the descriptions, how-to steps, and screenshots. Thank you very much for your time. Please contact me for additional project management templates and samples. Here's my contact information.